It would take over 100 years to capture Ukraine. Analysts have assessed the pace of Russia's offensive. Putin is ready to concede territories in exchange for full control over Donetsk region. Trump is afraid to put pressure on Moscow and may shift his focus to Kyiv. Should Ukraine expect ultimatums from the US? Russia has modernized its Car Bs, and for the first time, an aerial bomb struck Lozova. The oil refinery went up in flames like a matchstick. An oil refinery near Samara was set on fire. And the unexpected ice storm. Finland experienced the largest traffic accident in the country's history. Hello, my name is Volodymyr Karaban. Watch the latest news that matters to Ukraine and the world right now. Putin is ready to give up several Ukrainian regions in exchange for full control over Donetsk region. According to the Washington Post, in a phone conversation with Trump, the bunker dweller hinted that he might give up Zaporizhzhia and Kherson regions. As stated in the article, according to two high-ranking officials, during a phone conversation with Trump this week, Putin demanded that Kyiv hand over full control of Donetsk region to Russia as a condition for ending the war. Analysts write that this is a somewhat smaller territorial claim than the one he made in August at the summit with Trump in Anchorage. Therefore, some White House officials interpreted the bunker dweller's hint as progress. Let me remind you, earlier President Zelensky stated that Ukraine will not trade its own territories and insists on a ceasefire along the current front line. After that, further conditions can be discussed at negotiations. At the current pace of Russia's offensive, it would take more than 100 years to fully occupy Ukraine. These calculations were published by the British outlet The Economist. In particular, Russia could theoretically fully occupy the Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia regions by the summer of 2030. But it would take the Kremlin 103 years to completely seize the country. As analysts write, since the front line stabilized after the end of Ukraine's first counteroffensive in October 2022, it has hardly changed. Not a single major city has fallen into enemy hands. According to the publication's calculations, since May of this year, when Russia launched a large-scale offensive on the front, it has captured only 0.4% of Ukrainian territory and has not achieved any significant objectives. At the same time, the article notes that Russia is paying a huge price for minimal gains on the battlefield, and even Russia will not be able to sustain this level of losses for years. The Kremlin does not want to put pressure on Putin. Instead, it is putting pressure on Kyiv. This is the headline under which the Wall Street Journal published its article. In particular, the article analyzes the events of recent days, including the announcement of a new summit with Putin in Budapest and the visit of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the White House. One of the officials in Washington allegedly stated that within the White House administration, it was emphasized that Trump is unwilling to put pressure on Putin, who so far has shown little interest in making the concessions necessary to reach an agreement. The US is putting more pressure on Kyiv than on Moscow. According to the publication, Trump will bet on another round of personal diplomacy, specifically a meeting with the bunker dweller in Budapest, to achieve a breakthrough in the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, in the EU, the very idea of Trump and Putin meeting in Budapest is considered an insult. This is reported by El País. Analysts say that the upcoming meeting between Trump and the bunker dweller in Budapest puts the EU and NATO in an awkward position, as the heads of state will be discussing the Ukrainian issue in an EU country, but without the participation of the European Union. El País also notes that if European leaders do not want to anger Trump, then a number of countries will have to issue special permits to the Russian dictator for their airspace or force him to take an even longer route. If this does not happen, Putin's plane will be forced to make a detour through Central Asia, the Middle East, and the Balkans. Although the usual route from Moscow to Budapest is about 1,900 kilometers, the distance will now increase 2.5 times to over 5,000 kilometers. Meanwhile, Trump is planning to take the scenario of regulating the war in the Middle East and for Ukraine. Peace through force. Yes, today they are planning to negotiate with Moscow. But will the US be able to transfer the model of the temporary special commission from Hamas to Putin? Find out right now.
Peace through strength. That is exactly how Trump's peace plan after the end of the war in Gaza is described. The American president still managed to achieve peace in the Middle East. And although there is still much work to be done and Hamas is not going to surrender so easily, it was a triumph for Trump. Now he announces that the US will focus on resolving the war in Ukraine.
Trump doesn't want to waste time. Right now, he wants to move forward. I'm telling you, he's set on new peacekeeping feats, God willing.
So what is the essence of Trump's doctrine? Hamas was influenced by pressure. And it is precisely this lesson, as written in the Wall Street Journal, that Trump needs to take from the Middle East settlement. The lesson about the necessity of pressure.
To stop the fighting in the Gaza Strip, Trump put pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, while Qatar pressured Egypt. Turkey, in turn, exerted influence on Hamas by threatening to limit its diplomatic support for the group. At the same time, Israel's military operation in the Gaza Strip continued.
There has been no similar pressure on Russia from Trump so far. And although the US imposed high tariffs against India, a trading partner of Moscow, no new sanctions against Russia have been introduced. But now experts are optimistic.
This inspires him to new peacekeeping feats, that's obvious. He has already announced that he will be working on ending the war between Russia and Ukraine. Well, after all, just like the war in the Gaza Strip, the Russian-Ukrainian war is an issue that is directly and closely tied to Trump's political reputation. And so, there is also a positive impulse here. There are certain precedents related to this agreement that can be used. And it's obvious that this inspires Trump.
Western media also believe that after the agreement between Israel and Hamas, Trump may increase pressure on Russia. A good sign is also Trump's own statements about his intentions to address the Russian-Ukrainian war. And also the meeting between the Ukrainian and American leaders, which is scheduled to take place on October 17th in Washington.
Zelensky is flying to the States. Zelensky has already confirmed it. Trump has confirmed it, and our team has gone ahead to prepare the visit. They aren't saying what it will be about, but I'll tell you right away. Peace negotiations. The meeting is important. Not just technical issues, not just about money. Tomahawks are part of the peace agreements. Tomahawks are what could bring peace faster, forcing Russia to the negotiating table.
And in this case, Trump's peace plan to end the war in Gaza could become the necessary precedent that helps end the war in Ukraine. At least in Europe in particular, there are expectations that Trump will apply the tactics used in Gaza to stop Russian aggression.
This gives Trump enormous opportunities to resolve other major conflicts. Now he has established himself as an effective arbiter and peacemaker.
To resolve the Russian-Ukrainian issue, Trump may involve the president of Turkey. According to the American president, Erdogan is respected both in Ukraine and in Russia.
People respect him, and he's my friend. You see, that's why I get along with tough guys, but not with the weak ones.
Trump says that Erdogan can help us achieve peace, and Trump likes Erdogan. So overall, Erdogan is a politician who appeals to Trump in terms of his behavior and the way he has built a power vertical. After all, Erdogan resolved the issue in Syria. Now the Syrian dictator and murderer is sitting in Moscow playing Sony PlayStation, according to publications and Telegram channels, while Syria is actually being governed by those who once fought on the side of the rebels. This criminal was driven out and Russia has lost its influence. That's why Erdogan could help here.
But there is a significant difference between the war between Hamas and Israel and the Russian-Ukrainian war, the so-called China factor. The Middle Kingdom has become an important economic and political partner for Russia. And this could play into Russia's hands or the opposite. If Trump can get Beijing involved in supporting the negotiations, China could become a key factor in swaying Putin.
Meanwhile, they decided to put pressure directly on Trump. Protests with the slogan "No to Kings" swept across America. Tens of thousands dissatisfied with Washington's policies took to the streets in all 50 states. This is how protesters are trying to publicly express their disagreement with Trump's decision to deploy National Guard troops to U.S. cities. His immigration raids and cuts to foreign aid and domestic programs that had previously been approved by the Democrats. At the same time, organizers stated that millions of people across the United States joined the rallies. Meanwhile, journalists write that Trump reacted to the protests in a completely typical manner. The President of the United States went to his residence to play golf. A submarine completely packed with drugs. Trump announced the destruction of the sub that was carrying illegal cargo to the US. The American leader wrote about this on his social network, Trust Social. According to him, the submarine was destroyed in the Caribbean Sea and 2 crew members were taken captive. The US Navy destroyed a submarine that was heading to the United States along a well-known drug trafficking route. According to Trump, US intelligence confirmed that the vessel was loaded with illegal drugs. There were 4 people on board the submarine. 2 of them were captured alive, while the other 2 were killed along with the vessel. At least 25,000 Americans would have died if I had allowed that submarine to reach the shore, the president wrote. But Russian submarines break down without any attacks at all. Time and again, Putin's submarine fleet breaks down, surfaces, and returns home in disgrace. CNR report how sanctions are helping to slowly but inevitably destroy Moscow's military power.
The Swedish Navy detected a Russian submarine in the Baltic Sea. The military reported this on the social network X. According to the agency, the vessel entered the Baltic Sea through the Great Belt Strait and was later spotted in the Kattegat between Sweden and Denmark. Air Force units and fighter jets escorted the submarine. The Swedes described this episode as nothing more than a routine mission. The name of the submarine has not been disclosed in Sweden. It is only known that it is a multi-purpose diesel-electric submarine of the Kilo class, according to NATO classification. The Novorossiysk submarine, with which the Russians recently embarrassed themselves on the world stage, also belongs to this class, when it suddenly surfaced off the coast of France.
By many characteristics, this is the best submarine not only in the Russian fleet, but in the entire world. Its engine runs more quietly than the sound of the sea outside, which means the vessel can remain undetected on NATO radar screens.
The submarine itself is built so well that it's no wonder they call it the black hole. In other words, detecting this submarine, I think, will be a major problem for any potential adversary.
This is how, 10 years ago, Russian propaganda talked about the lead ship of the modernized submarine project, the Novorossiysk. It was built specifically for the Russian Black Sea Fleet. At the time, the media breathlessly assured that this submarine was capable of sinking an entire group of enemy ships. But now, in 2025, it seems the submarine itself is preparing to go under.
According to the VCHK GPU, due to damage in the fuel system of the Novorossiysk, which is on combat duty in the Mediterranean Sea, fuel is leaking directly into the bilge. There are no spare parts for repairs or qualified specialists on board the submarine. The crew is unable to fix the malfunction. Other problems have started to occur as a result of the serious accident. The accumulated fuel in the bilge is an explosive hazard. The investigator believes that the crew has no other choice but to start opening the bilge right in the sea.
In order to, as they say, effectively solve this significant problem, they truly have no other viable option. They will absolutely have to pump this contaminated water-fuel mixture directly overboard. Well, basically, yes, of course, if this starts happening with the planes, and undoubtedly there are planes tracking the boat anti-submarine aircraft, the Mediterranean Sea, after all, is, it must be said, quite a densely populated place by military vessels from various countries, so it will be easy to spot due to the large rainbow wake. In fact, that's exactly what everyone is watching for right now. But it should be noted that a submarine about 70 meters long is not that big, not that massive in terms of volume, although, of course, any pollution of the environment is not welcome at all.
Now, in order to prevent the Russians from causing an environmental disaster, the situation is being monitored by hundreds of international experts. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Defense is boasting, claiming that there were no emergencies and that everything went exactly as planned. At the same time, they forget to clarify exactly what they are doing in the Mediterranean Sea, given that the withdrawal of the last submarine from there was reported back in January. And most importantly, whether there is a Kaliber missile on board the Novorossiysk, which the Russian army usually launches from these vessels. And furthermore, the command doesn't mention at all whether there is a threat to the lives.
This refers to the collective individuals who form the operational team, encompassing all members directly involved in the execution of tasks and responsibilities. A fire and the loss of the submarine's crew. For me, the most important question today is, what is the Russian Federation planning to save? Are they planning to save the hardware, or are they planning to save the people? From my point of view, in the event of such an accident, most of the crew should have been taken off the ship, off the submarine. leave only those sailors who are able to fight for the vessel's survivability. And fighting for survivability primarily means ensuring that all critical compartments of the submarine are completely sealed so that there is absolutely no fuel leakage whatsoever throughout the submarine's various compartments, thereby maintaining its operational integrity and safety.
So far, hardware has remained the top priority for officials at the Russian Ministry of Defense. And obviously, the experience of the nuclear submarine Kursk, on which 118 crew members died, has taught them nothing. Novorossiysk did not request assistance and is now heading to the port of Kronstadt under the watchful eye of NATO anti-submarine aircraft, where it is reportedly expected to arrive on October 21st. According to sources close to law enforcement agencies, there have been 10 incidents on the submarine during its deployment. If Novorossiysk makes it to the base, the crew will be lucky, they'll be replaced by another. Whether the Russians will be able to restore the submarine is a big question.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
Russia has modernized the KB. The bomb attacked Lozova for the first time and flew over 130 kilometers. This was reported by the Kharkiv Regional Prosecutor's Office. Law enforcement officers write that the strike happened the previous evening. The enemy attacked with a KB in a private residential area, as a result of which local houses were damaged. According to the prosecutor's office, 5 people were injured in the shelling. As for the weapon used, prosecutors believe it was a rocket-powered KAB. Currently, its modification and flight range are being determined. However, this is the first instance of a guided aerial bomb being used on the city of Lozova. So it is likely that the Russian Federation has completed another round of modernization of its aerial bombs and is now testing the new model on Ukrainian cities. Meanwhile, there is nothing new about strikes on Russian oil refineries anymore. Last night, a series of powerful explosions occurred near Samara, after which eyewitnesses reported a large-scale fire. According to local reports, in Novokuybishevsk, people first heard the sounds of drones flying overhead, and then explosions followed. There have been no official statements about the fire from the local authorities yet, but judging by eyewitness accounts, it was the Russian oil refinery that caught fire. The blaze was so massive that it could be seen from literally every corner of the city. Judging by the scale of the fire, it is clear that several fuel tanks were hit. However, the exact consequences of the attack are still unknown. Austria is no longer blocking the new package of sanctions against Russia. Such a statement was made by the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs the day before, removing one of the key obstacles to voting on the 19th package at the beginning of next week, Reuters reports. The EU foreign ministers are set to meet on Monday in Luxembourg, where they hope to finally agree on the 19th package of sanctions against Russia. It was previously reported that the adoption of the package had reached a deadlock, as Austria demanded that the EU lift sanctions from part of Russia's assets in order to compensate Austria's Raiffeisenbank International for fines imposed by Russia. But it seems that the official Vienna has been persuaded. Now the intrigue lies in Slovakia's position, which had also previously opposed the new sanctions package. It is expected that the issue will be resolved as soon as tomorrow, October 20th. Meanwhile, France has been a consistent supporter of all sanctions packages against Russia and a reliable partner of Ukraine since the first months of the war. The last few days have been no exception. The country is increasing its military aid and is ready to further invest in the production of Ukrainian weapons. How Paris is helping Kyiv today, more on that right now.
France is an ally of Ukraine in the fight against the Russian invaders. The country manufactures drones and air defense systems for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. As Defense Minister Rustem Umerov has emphasized, our country has combat experience, while France has a powerful industry. Accordingly, this ensures a mutually beneficial partnership for both sides.
There is no open data yet because what is known is cooperation on the Scalp missiles. For example, this is joint production. In the British version, it's Storm Shadow. There's also the Caesar artillery system, which France supplies. Is there only interest in Ukraine? Of course there is, because Ukraine not only has specific technologies that make it possible to wage next-generation warfare, but also the tactics for using them and experience. Millions of records, for example, of artificial intelligence, which make it possible to use this effectively on the battlefield. Of course, the French are very interested in this, just like any other country that cooperates with Ukraine.
It was the French, together with the United Kingdom, who came up with the idea to send peacekeepers to Ukraine in order to provide our country with security guarantees.
Foreign Minister Sikorsky stated this very clearly. So what kind of security guarantees are you talking about? When it comes to security guarantees, you need to state clearly whether you are ready to shoot at Russians. If you are ready to shoot at Russians, then you should be doing it right now, because Russia has already attacked Ukraine.
To be honest, at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, France did not immediately support Ukraine.
At that time, he came together with Scholz and Draghi essentially to persuade Ukraine to surrender on Russia's terms. But when Zelensky was being linked in the warm summer of the year 2025,
the Ukrainian Minister of Defense announced the creation of a new international initiative for joint arms production. On the territory of the countries participating in the Defense Contact Group
of Ukraine, a large Eastern European country known for its rich history, diverse culture, and strategic geopolitical importance. Armaments. Ukraine is now actively scaling up production in European Union countries. First and foremost, this concerns Denmark, with which we have developed a fruitful relationship regarding investments in Ukrainian defense.
The initiative provides for the establishment of licensed production of Ukrainian weapons in partner countries in order to meet the urgent needs of Ukraine's defense forces. In 2024, the French and Ukrainian sides signed an agreement to launch the production of ammunition under license from KNDS France Nexter. Thus, France is not only supplying old weapons for Ukraine's defense, but has also established cooperation between its manufacturers and the armed forces of Ukraine for fundamental defense collaboration and the exchange of wartime experience.
And finally, the largest traffic accident in history. In Finland, due to a sudden cold snap, the biggest accident of all time occurred. More than 70 cars collided. The incident happened on one of the highways in the city of Lahti. Due to unexpected black ice and fog, cars kept crashing into the vehicles ahead for several hours. Dozens of people were taken to hospitals. At least 10 people were injured. Among the damaged vehicles were 2 police patrol cars. The police reported that at the time of the accident, the asphalt was covered with a thin layer of ice, and due to the fog, visibility was reduced to just a few meters. The mass pileup was only stopped when it got a bit lighter on the road. With that, I say goodbye to you. There will be more news in the 4 p.m. broadcast. In the meantime, be sure to leave your comments under this video, and don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel to stay even more informed.